morning, everybody. I thought today that we would talk. I was going to have my granddaughter on, first of all, from Turning Point, but she ran into a snag. And so she's going to be on tomorrow, Thursday, and talk about chasing the ballot, the big initiative that the Republicans are putting on to make sure that all Republicans get out and vote in the November election and the primaries too. But so I decided to go ahead and talk about the protests going on across the country at universities and colleges and how insane this has become, and I'll revert back to when Reagan talked about, let me see if I can pull up his about college protesters. Let me see if I can pull that speech up. This is, I'm going to stop because these are words of wisdom, and this is how you need to handle these sort of things. Let me see where we're going to go. All right. So I'm going to share this. But this is the kind of leadership that we need in order to stop these sort of protests. I think that what Columbia has done and all of these universities, some of them are handling it correctly, but what a lot of them have done is basically they give them deadlines. It's like telling your child, if you don't stop it, I'm going to spank you. If you don't stop it, I'm going to spank you. A child knows the parent's never going to do anything about it. And so basically, this is the line of accountability that these students are having to face. Nothing. So I want to play this.
They're called bionic boomers, seniors.
We're going to have a little bit of an ad, so I'm going to let that run. Here we go. So let's listen to this. This was in Berkeley, California in 1969. There's all kinds of riots going on there.
A lot of land that had been taken by protesters. The university owned it. They were trying to turn it into a parking lot. The protesters claimed it as a park for the people.
Reagan orders the California Highway Patrol and Berkeley police officers to the park. While the crowd continues to swell, Reagan's chief of staff sends reinforcements to the scene. He tells them to use whatever methods they choose against the protesters. Not long after, police start firing buckshot and tear gas. One student is killed, and an estimated 128 people are admitted to local hospitals. Reagan declares a state of emergency and sends in the National Guard.
He was attempting to crack down on student protesters. Depending on your political point of view, he was either successful in doing so or he was authoritarian.
Those people told you for days in advance that if the university sought to go ahead with that construction, they were going to physically destroy the university. Now, why did you
negotiate many times?
Negotiate? What is to negotiate? What is?
The university is a public institution.
That's right. But the university,
its own community, and for the community of Berkeley that live around it.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
These were quite controversial moves, but helped solidify a base for him.
So I think that those are the kind of words, that's the kind of action, not the killing, not the injuring and stuff, but had the university, Columbia University, handled it from the beginning and gone in and removed these people before it started growing into what it is, they would have been able to have a lot more control over this situation. And it would have shown other college campuses, don't do this because this is what's going to happen across the nation. This is how we handle this sort of thing in America. And they didn't do that. And so then they started moving in. You could tell it was an orchestrated, paid for type protest because all the same kind of tents were put up. These college students just don't all go to a sporting goods store and everybody buy the same kind of tent and put it up. It's funded. And there's been some proof now that George Soros has some funding with some organizations that are funding these protests. And now you've got outside agitators who aren't even university students coming in and really whipping up the masses and creating more chaos and making it a more dangerous situation. So I just watched last night a news conference with the New York Police Department, and they were talking about, we're just waiting a call from Columbia University to go in and help them with the situation. They've taken over Nathaniel Hall. They've taken the big steel barricades inside there. They're barricading the doors. They're taking over the college, and they're making it quite obvious the hate they have for the Jewish students there on campus and Jewish people, Zionists around the country. This is a disgusting display of anti-Semitism, and I cannot believe that this many colleges and campuses are allowing it to go on. We've got, let me see. I've got an article here about in Arizona. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and share this because obviously I'm in Arizona, and they were pretty much shutting it down, but it's at all the colleges here. It's at ASU, U of A, NAU, and the students of all three public universities have over the last week constructed encampments in protest. This is on ASU. Well, this was a day after they had already arrested students there at ASU. They ended up back there. And the students who are supported by other community activists are calling on their universities to divest from Israel and condemn the war. And at Arizona State University, 15 students were arrested, while others at the University of Arizona were threatened with arrest. Which it's escalating to hundreds of students being arrested. And in some cases, police in other states have dragged students away or forced them to the ground. And the Arizona Board of Regents, the entity overseeing the state's public university system, said in a statement to the Arizona Republic newspaper that students must adhere to their code of conduct. The board defends and upholds the First Amendment right to free expression. Individuals exercising these rights must nevertheless follow all applicable laws, university regulations, and the ABOR Code of Conduct. And these rules and laws exist to protect teaching and learning on campus, uphold individuals' right to free speech, and prioritize safety. So this is a Palestinian protester arrested on Arizona State University in Tempe shortly after midnight, after several hours of demonstrations. Here's another photo of that situation. There's the police there at ASU's Tempe campus. Let's see. I guess these are all just going to be at ASU. I thought they were going to show some of U of A or whatnot. So anyway, this is going on here in Arizona. This is at the University of Arizona down in Tucson. A man holding a Palestinian flag at a rally that gathered more than 200 people. The rally was organized by the Students for Justice in Palestine, the organization's final rally of the year, on April 25th, 2024. So SJP, which is the Students for Justice in Palestine, are the ones that are across the country kind of causing this chaos. This is where George Soros money has gone. And the University of Arizona, U of A, their encampment disbanded before the deadline. They were given a deadline. And so they dispersed before that deadline hit. NAU, which is up in Flagstaff here, they started their own encampment on Tuesday morning. with more than 15 tents were pitched outside the campus bookstore with some pro-Israel demonstrators arriving in the morning. So it's happening everywhere across the country. But some of the, like in Austin, Texas, let's see, let me share this so that you see what I'm reading from. I just think this is a disgrace that they've allowed these things to last so long. When they were peaceful, it was one thing. But when you start putting up encampments on college lawns, and when you start preventing college students from walking freely on the campus when they've paid their tuition, and when you start harassing a certain group of people, this is against everything. You know, and it's been talked about so many times on the news. If this was a group of Black students who were being harassed by white supremacists on a college campus, the police would have been there, shut that down, lickety split. It would have been over with within a matter of hours. They wouldn't have allowed that to go on. But this is discrimination based on your religion. It's completely against everything that our children have been taught in high school, in colleges, in the past. I don't know what's going on anymore at these college campuses. I don't know what they're being taught. Pick and choose who you want to pick on this next week is basically, I think, where they're going with all of this. So nearly 80 UT Austin protesters held in jail overnight after arrest from the Gaza demonstration. And, you know, they had National Guard called in and charging most with misdemeanor criminal trespass. Authorities said none had been released from custody by early Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, a departure from last week when demonstrators departed from jail the same day and had their charges quickly dropped. So they're getting a little more strict there in Texas as this goes on and on and on. George Lobb, an attorney with the Austin Lawyer Guild who is helping with the cases, said none of the protesters had been released as of early Tuesday afternoon. So, you know, you've got these attorneys who, again, are paid by all these nonprofit organizations that have dirty money being filtered into them. And they're the ones who pay all these attorney fees to these attorneys who will represent these protesters. Let me see. Travis County District Attorney Delia Garza did not respond to her request for comment. Her office did not pursue similar charges against 57 protesters who were arrested during an initial demonstration on the campus last week. So when you do that sort of thing and you don't charge these young kids with the crimes that they're committing, they're going to be back tomorrow, right? They're going to continue coming back because until they face the consequences of their action, they're just going to continue doing the same thing over and over and over. The scary thing is that when you look at some of the faces on these people, you wonder, where did these men come from? They look like scary individuals. Are these people who just crossed over the border? I mean, let me go back to that picture. Even that woman is scary. You can see the hate in her face. Were these people who just came over our border and who are coming to cause this kind of chaos and unrest in our country? You got to wonder. It's not a good thing what's happening on our college campuses at all. Let's see. This is that was the Austin protesters today. And here's a silly thing. Columbia had a deadline a week ago Friday of when they were supposed to be out of there. And so, you know, the weekend goes on and they just don't do anything about it. They think it's going to die down, let the kids alone. Well, now Columbia University is threatening to expel students occupying building in the pro-Palestinian demonstration. That's not going to happen, folks. And these dangerous pictures and what they're doing, the things that they brought inside the building. Protesters first took over Hamilton Hall early on Tuesday morning after defying orders to disperse from an earlier encampment they had set up at Columbia's University Morningside campus in New York City. Participants were seen vandalizing the buildings and moving furniture and other items into the entryways. So the Columbia spokesperson said today, students occupying the buildings face expulsion. Like, these kids are even going to believe them. And the other sad and sick thing is that a lot of these university executives and university administration is talking about granting these students asylum. Asylum from what? Asylum from the law? What is this country turning into when you've got sanctuary policies for illegal criminals? You've got asylum for illegal criminals and people illegally present in our country. And now they're going to give asylum to these students who basically were performing an insurrection at the college. They completely disrupted the college day-to-day operations. An insurrection. And they've blocked Jewish students from entering the campus at all. They've physically assaulted media. They physically assaulted Jewish students. They don't care what they do because in their minds, they're right. So when you've got college professors who are backing these students up with the uprising and the insurrection that they are performing at Columbia University, you're not going to come to a peaceful end. You've empowered these students. You've given them the power to think that they have a right to protest non-peacefully, to take over a college, and to prevent other students from attending their classes after they've paid tens of thousands of dollars in tuition. And the sad thing is, for the students who are graduating this year, and on a lot of these campuses are going to be closed down for graduation, those are the same students who didn't get to attend their high school graduation because of COVID. And 4 years later, their universities are shut down. That's pretty sad, because your high school graduation and your college graduation is a pretty big thing that you have to look back on. I mean, I remember my high school graduation and the build up to it, and the night of the graduation, and just knowing you had completed 12 years of school and you were on to the next chapter of your life. So those students missed out on that. And now after 4 long years of going for their college education, now they're going to miss out on walking across the stage and receiving their diploma in front of their family and friends again. It's just wrong what these students have been able to pull off. It's not right. I want to see, because I want to see maybe if I've got, if I can pull up the, the other thing is too, that they've allowed them to put a Palestinian flag up at Hamilton Hall. They had it at Columbia University on one of the other buildings, but now they have it hanging at Hamilton Hall. And yeah, this doesn't show. Well, this might be a good video for you to watch. Let me see. Let me go ahead and stream this and show you this whole thing. But I'm going to try and find the New York Police Department update that they gave just a little bit ago.
Recent campus demonstrations at Columbia, Yale, USC, and elsewhere regarding the Israel-Hamas war are just the latest chapter of American college campuses becoming grounds for protest. At Kent State University in 1970, a Vietnam War protest turned deadly when 4 people were shot dead by National Guardsmen. Just days later, tensions between police and students at historically black Jackson State University resulted in 2 deaths. In 1960, 4 black students from North Carolina Agricultural and Technical College peacefully sat in at a segregated lunch counter in Greensboro. In 1964, UC Berkeley students protested
Well, these dang ads.
the school's restrictions on political activities on campus. About 2 decades later, colleges in California saw large-scale demonstrations calling on schools to pull investments from companies doing business with South Africa's apartheid government.
So these professors come in and they have these classes and they talk to these students about the importance of their voice and becoming activists and going out and protesting. And as long as things stay peaceful, it's one thing. But as time has marched on, the activist role with a lot of these college professors and what they preach to their students has really gained momentum. And you're actually seeing within the Democratic Party that they are pushing activists to get into office. And there's many Democratic organizations, NGOs, nonprofits that have millions and millions of dollars, which is something that I've been looking into recently, and I'll have a podcast on it in the future. But they are definitely contributing to the Democratic Party to bolster up these activists to get into office. And I'm going to talk about a situation here in Arizona. So in my legislative district in 2022, when I was running for Arizona State Representative, there was 2 Democrats running for the 2 House seats, and there was a Democrat running for the Senate seat. We were a new district that was formed. And the Democratic Party and all of their nonprofits and NGOs and all the things, they contributed over $2 million for these 3 seats, which, by the way, the salary is only $24,000 a year, by the way. But they've spent over $2 million for this. And so you saw, and this is why there's so many questions still regarding the elections in Maricopa County, because all the early voting, all the mail-in ballots, all that stuff was counted up days and weeks before the actual election day. And so we were out at the polls. We saw the majority of people coming in to the polling places to vote in person on voting day were Republicans. But you never saw the difference between us Republican candidates, the 3 of us, the 1 for Senate and 2 for House. You never saw the difference between the Democrats and us. You never saw the difference rise on election day for the Republicans. And we know, because we were out at these polling places, we know we had supporters. We know it was a huge day for us. But anyway, these 3 Democrats got into office in this newly formed district when redistricting happened. And you've got one, well, to me, she's a woman. You've got one woman who holds one of the Arizona State Representative seats for LD9, Lorena Austin. And she identifies as a non-binary Latino legislator. She claims she's the first one in the United States, non-binary Latino, to hold office. And that is her hill to die on. And I know, and everybody else in this district knows, she doesn't represent LD9 at all. She's an LGBTQ activist, and that is all she wants to talk about in committee hearings. You know, how tough her life was, how her family didn't accept her, how her community didn't accept her. And now she's back, and she even says in these committee hearings things like, I'm your worst nightmare. I'm the contagion you don't want in the room. I mean, she's just disgusting, the things that she says in committee hearings. And it's just a personal vendetta of hers to be in office is basically what it is. Well, what she did yesterday, she reserved a room, a meeting room, went to the speaker, reserved a room, you know, at the Capitol to have a meeting. And it ended up being a drag queen story hour. And she hosted it. Arizona State Representative Lorena Austin hosted it with Planned Parenthood. And they had this sneaky drag queen story hour in the basement meeting room of the Capitol. And the Arizona GOP legislators who approved her having that meeting room were lied to as to what she was going to be using that room for. And so now, and also she has signed on to a letter that Katie Hobbs, the governor of Arizona, signed for a ceasefire in Israel. She's pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas. Basically, Lorena Austin is anti-Semitic. And so this is who we have representing us in LD9 in Arizona. She's a product of the activist movement within the Democratic Party. Obviously, we've got to get her out of office. I'm going to be fighting very, very hard because we need some no nonsense. We need a solid head on a representative's shoulders to go in there and understand the issues that are facing Arizona. And she's not understanding it. She is all about open borders. And it goes against the very core of the Hispanic community here in LD9 in Mesa, Arizona. That isn't what the Hispanic community is about. The Hispanic community is not about the LGBTQ trans community. And basically, it's not the LGBT, it's not the gay community. It's the trans and non-binary. It's that community that goes after our children. And that's what Lorena is part of. And that's what I know LD9, my LD9 constituents do not go along with that. The Hispanic community would not go along with that. The Hispanic community does not go along with drag queen hour, story hour. They don't go along with disgusting, filthy books in our public libraries and in our school libraries that our children have access to, which Lorena Austin is all about. Keeping those things in our schools and in our public libraries. So we've got an uphill battle. And I know there's a lot of these types of Democratic activist candidates who are out there in other communities outside of Arizona. They could be in your state, in your city, in your community, running for office. And we need to be very carefully. We need to tread lightly on this type of stuff because these are the people who are going to be getting into office and fighting against common sense bills and common sense laws that the legislation in your state is trying to pass to protect the majority of the citizens. I.e., in Arizona here, we've been trying to get legislation passed to secure the borders. Every one of the Democrats in the legislation here in Arizona, they vote against it. Our Democratic governor, veto queen, Katie Hobbs, vetoes everything that has to do with border security. She will not declare it an invasion, even when the Texas law, it's being fought now in court, but even when that was all happening and the Texas National Guard is down there at Shelby Park and has all that razor wire up and has completely stopped illegal crossings there in that area, it's pushing all of those people to Arizona. And so it is the amount of people crossing our border right now is way up. And we still have a governor who won't declare it an emergency or an invasion so that we're able to activate the Arizona National Guard to get them down there to our border and basically do the same sort of thing that Texas is doing. And Texas has a Rio Grande, that's their border, and it's wide open like that clear across Texas. They've got some small portions of wall. I mean, I know I was a part of We Build the Wall, and we built that wall in Sunland Park. And what's funny is the New Mexico mayor was just pleading with Mayorkas and Biden, Mayorkas mainly, to get reinforcements down there to Sunland Park. So the wall that We Build the Wall put up was up the side of a mountain on the east side, right outside of El Paso. It went up to the top of the mountain, and then it stops, and then over the mountain, it goes down the mountain, and then there's a big gap at the bottom of the mountain where it's flat, and then the wall continues, the border wall, the big steel border wall. And that is where the flood of all the illegals is coming in. We Build the Wall was actually contracting to finish off, to go over the top of the mountain and come down the west side and connect to that other, the federal border wall. When, of course, the Southern District of New York stepped in and said, oh, no, you don't. You're not going to do this sort of thing, and stole the tens of millions of dollars that we still had that We Build the Wall still had in the accounts. Southern District of New York stole all of that. This is how corrupt the prosecutors and attorney generals there are in New York. They're disgusting. But anyway, she's even talking about how bad it is in New Mexico. And let me tell you, she's a liberal governor. She could care less. You don't hear much about things that are happening in New Mexico because she keeps it pretty hush-hush. But that's the same kind of governor that we have here in Arizona. So all of these people who are being restrained from crossing the border in Texas are now making it the easy trek into Arizona. Over 300 miles of unsecured border with Mexico is what Arizona represents. 4 strands of barbed wire or Normandy fencing is it. It takes you 2 seconds to cross the border. I've done it personally. So we need to have strong leadership. We need to have a bigger Republican representation down there at the Capitol. We need to have the numbers of Republican representatives and senators down here at the state in order to be able to override vetoes from this governor. And that's why you got to make sure that you're not voting in some weak, moderate, rhino type Republican. You really have to ask the questions. You really have to get out of your comfort zone and have these conversations with these representatives who are running to represent you. Show up at the meetings where they are and have a conversation with them and put them on the spot. I would much rather my constituents ask me point blank questions and they know where they stand with me, how we stand on issues. And, you know, I often tell people, because there may be 10 issues that are very important to a voter, to you and I as voters, that we're very staunch about. But if we agree, if I would agree with you as a representative on 9 of those issues, and we just came to an impasse on one issue versus the Democrat who'd be running, and you would have one thing in common and 9 things that you didn't agree on, who would you vote for? You would vote for the person who you align with the most, who has the same principles and values that you do. And that's what's lacking with the American people and how they go to a voting booth. I mean, I remember back when I was raising my family in the 80s, and I remember going and voting and just going down the list of judge names and thinking, oh, that name sounds good. That name sounds nice. That person sounds nice by their name. I didn't have the time or the energy raising my family to look at this sort of thing. But if you are the type of person who really researches and investigates candidates, and you have friends and family that are like-minded with you, share that information, folks. Share it with them, because they may not have the time to do the research that you have the time to do. We all have to help each other. And so you look at New York and you look at what a mess they are right now, not only with, you know, the illegal situation and how they are completely putting these illegals up on a pedestal and treating them with kid gloves. Not only that problem that plagues them, and you're having the minorities and every American who lives in New York is feeling very slighted by the government there. And then you have all these sham charges that are brought against President Trump, and these trials that are happening. And again, wasted taxpayer money on these types of trials, because you've got attorney generals and county attorneys, and they want to make a name for themselves and be out in the news so that they can get reelected next time. The New York legal system makes me sick. You know, and you look back to when Mayor Giuliani was the mayor and how he brought crime statistics down, and how the New York PD was such a revered type of police department. Everybody loved them. You know, when you went to New York and you went to a gift shop or a souvenir shop, you made sure that you got an NYPD baseball hat to wear or an NYPD t-shirt. And that was a big deal back then. And to see what it's turned into now, and to know that a lot of these New York police officers are quitting before their retirement age because they just can't handle the chaos and the nonsense and the despair. And they're watching as their city is decimated. And they're packing up their families and they're leaving and they're going to some other states. A lot of them are going to Florida. Governor DeSantis was advertising and welcoming any law enforcement agent that came from New York. Come down to Florida. We'll hire you at a better pay rate. And you'll also have a safer state and a safer community that you'll be patrolling because you have a governor who cares about his citizens, residents, community safety. He cares about those sort of things. These types of governors are far and few between. We really have to, support these type of politicians who are running in these positions. I can't say this enough. I mean, I know I talk about this many times on my podcast, but I'm going to keep saying it until you're finally like, oh, wait, Marianne said, we really have to research these people. We really have to know what we're doing. And again, like I just said a few minutes ago, if you've got the time to do the research on the candidates that are running and your family and friends don't, share the information with them. Send out an email and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I did research on these candidates and here's where each of them stand. And I had a face-to-face with a couple of them. And I really think this is a person that we need that aligns with how you and I think about things, that aligns with most of the people in our community. And we need to get this person in office. And everybody needs to step up and donate some money directly to that candidate. Don't put it through the RNC. Don't put it through WinRed. Put it directly to the candidates who need your support. I need your support. Go to MendozaForArizona.com and donate to my campaign. So these universities, it's a very scary thing because these kids, they were raised in households where they really didn't have any structure to begin with. Because when you have respect for authority, even if you go to a college that may be a little liberal and it may be a little unhinged and the professors kind of wackos, those types of teaching and what you learned when you were growing up, respect and restraint, that carries on at that age. It's pretty much embedded in you. So it's obvious that a lot of these kids had no guidance growing up, that they're quickly swayed like this. The other thing is that a lot of these agitators and these protesters are paid, and if they're college students and mom and dad may have them on a pretty strict budget, then, hey, you can make $10 an hour to go out and stand on the campus and sleep in these tents or $20 an hour, whatever they're paying them, and just cause chaos. Do nothing but cause chaos for the next 3 weeks. Don't leave if they tell you to leave. Stay there. And if things get heated, we'll pay you more per hour to stay there. This is what's going on. This is a type of funding that needs to stop. This is one of the most important issues that Congress could take up, folks, is to start investigating all of the nonprofits and see what they're up to and see where their money's coming from. Because there's a bunch of money laundering going on with these 501c3s, guaranteed. I had a very small organization, the Angel Moms and Angel Families. It's large as far as members, but it's very small when it comes to funding. And, I'm just going to be open and honest here. So FAIR, which is the Federation for American Immigration Reform, they would, of course, they latched on to us Angel Families because it was good stories and it was about illegal immigration. And they had these annual events in DC where they had a bunch of the sheriffs and a bunch of the Angel Families come, and we would do like a press conference out on the Capitol lawn. And the sheriffs across the United States are wonderful. the ones who are true patriots and understand constitutional rights and the laws in their communities. They are great men and women. And then they would have Feet to the Fire, which was 3 days of radio interviews where they had a huge area in a hotel set up where it would be booth after booth after booth after booth. And you would just go from one to the other. You'd have appointments set up for interviews and go in there and do that. And it was great. But I had a friend who kind of did a forensic type accounting of the money, that was reported by FAIR. And once they started using Angel Family stories, they ended up making about 11 million more in donations a year, because our stories were that compelling and intriguing to people. And we would be on these radio shows and talking about FAIR and supporting them and going to different events they would have around the country and talk about illegal immigration and open borders and how it's going to be affecting our communities. So I approached Dan Stein, who is the president, and I said, Dan, Angel Families needs a $25,000 a year grant to keep our organization up and running. $25,000 a year, folks, when they were making $11 million off of our stories. And I was told no. And basically what Angel Families needed that $25,000 annually to come into our funds was because if we wanted to put on an event locally that didn't include FAIR or wasn't involved with something they did, but was about our families and our stories and bringing awareness to our fellow Americans, we needed those funds to stay operating. But we were flatly told no. And so there was many of us Angel Families who told them to stop using our stories because we weren't going to let them financially benefit off of our dead loved one stories and them not reciprocate and give us some money back in order to keep our organization up and running. It's disgusting. And, Dan Stein is paid like $460,000 a year as a salary. And I think maybe he goes into Congress twice a year and makes his little speech. He's not even hardly in the office anymore. But this is where a lot of your money goes, folks. When you donate to these nonprofits like that and donate to, whatever, FAIR, to different, the Red Cross, these people are being paid huge salaries. Goodwill, you go and donate all of the stuff that you're not using at home. And you're thinking, oh, good, it's out of the house, it's out of my hair, done. But that's free inventory given to Goodwill. And they pay their employees crap. And the guy who owns Goodwill makes over $1 million a year as a salary. This is where things are wrong in the United States. But getting back to my point, where I think Congress needs to start investigating a lot of these 501c3s. Because I think that you've got administrative costs that are outrageous. Everybody at FAIR in the upper echelon is making over 6 figures a year. And honestly, there's not a whole lot that they do. They go off of the backs of CIS, from Numbers USA. FAIR gets a lot of their information from them and tries to use it as their own. I've witnessed where they have tried to take credit for the biggest illegal immigration bill passed in Florida by Angel Mom Representative, Florida State Representative Kyan Michael. She got no help from FAIR. Numbers USA helped her explicitly on that. And FAIR put out a big email trying to take credit for that, looking for donations. Because we were a part of this. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. And this is what makes me so mad about these grifters, these 501c3s, all of these people who claim that they want to help with the cause. I mean, I had grifters who were working for Joe Arpaio. It wasn't him, but it was these people who came into town and basically stole all of the money left in his pack when he wasn't running for Senate anymore. And they latched onto me and, we're going to raise money for Angel Families. And they used my story and my face and my son's face. And they did a push out, an email campaign where everybody signed on to this letter that was going to Nancy Pelosi about you need to stop illegal immigration. And they got thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in donations, and they were supposed to pass that on to angel families. So the reason why I signed on to this sort of thing, I felt like I could trust them. And what did they do? When I called them, they're like, oh, no, we promised you an email list of these big donors that you could start sending your own requests out to them to donate to your organization. No, that's not what you told me. I have emails to prove otherwise. Oh, well, we're just going to hold on to the money. And if you need flights to DC or somewhere for an event, then let us know and we'll arrange your flight and your hotel out of this money. No, that isn't what we agreed on. And basically what happened is we got nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then these people went and emptied Sheriff Joe Arpaio's war chest that he had in his pack. And then they skirted out of town. And one of those women is Chanel Ryan, who works for OAN. She's the one who called and told me, you're only going to get an email list of donors that you can write to. No, Chanel, you weren't even a part of this whole thing. So it's pretty sickening when you look at the big scheme of things and how I've been involved in this for 10 years now. I mean, May 12th, it's going to be 10 years ago that my son was killed. And I've been dealing with these yahoos and these grifters and these 501c3s and the promises and the broken promises and the people who just really don't care about us unless me and my son's story makes them money. Then I'm important to them. We've got to stop this kind of nonsense. But anyway, the 501c3s that need to be investigated, all of this money that George Soros money launders basically to get his will put out into the communities, you know, supporting district attorneys and attorney generals. And he filters money through all these 501c3s who, you know, it appears on a financial report that that these politicians and these elected officials have to turn in during their campaign time. It appears like, oh, it's just a non-significant little 501c3 that's supporting them. No, it's George Soros. Because it's come from him to this organization, down to this organization, and then over to this organization to donate to the campaign. And it's earmarked. They're told exactly where it's supposed to go, the trail that it's supposed to go on. That's what's so sick about all of this. And the same thing happening here in Arizona with the elections and how the Democrats are hell-bent on making sure that Arizona turns blue. Well, it's not going to. Arizona is not blue. Arizona is a strong conservative state. But when you've got all of these organizations, and again, like I said, I'm going to do a podcast on it maybe next week if I've got all the information pulled together. But all of these organizations that put money in behind these Democratic candidates and these Democratic activists who are running for office, it's disgusting to see the amount of money that's flowing. And I'm a firm believer that there should not be out-of-state money coming in to influence state elections in Arizona. Because a ton of money for Lorena, because her dad's an attorney, a ton of money came from attorneys on the East Coast. What do they care who a state representative in Arizona is? Why should their money come in here and influence and be able to pay for postcards that spew out hate and lies about their Republican opponents? This shouldn't be allowed. I'm on a roll. I'm fed up with a lot of this stuff. Oh, and here's another interesting thing that I found out yesterday. I have a friend who lives in Texas, and she was having problems with the United States Postal Service. She had ordered a bracelet online, never came. She got a hold of the company. They refunded her money. They said it must have just been lost in the mail. She ordered another one from another company. One of them was in Montana, and the second one that she ordered from was right there in Houston, Texas, and she lives a couple hours from Houston. That bracelet never showed up. So she ended up calling, which you can't, there's really no phone number to call to talk to somebody at the United States Postal Service. But she found a phone number direct to the post office there in Missoula, Montana. Is that where, or Missouri, Missoula, Montana, Wyoming? Anyway, she talked to them. And basically this girl told her, the Postal Service is in a big mess. So many packages and so many letters and so many parcels are lost. And we have no answers for people who are questioning us. We have no way of tracking any of these packages. This whole new system was put into place and it is a mess. And she was having a conversation with the one in Missoula saying, you know, what's going to happen when there's mail-in ballots? And the girl said, man, it's going to be a big problem in November. Huge. She goes, I don't know how many ballots are going to get lost in the mail at the rate that all these packages and parcels and letters are being lost. So she called the facility in Houston, and the girl there was very nonchalant, really didn't offer her a whole lot of information, but did say that the Postal Service is having a big problem. Now, supposedly they brought on a whole new system, and I don't know if you've seen the commercials on TV where it has all these wheels and trucks and, you know, like, oh, it's such a great system now. That's the upgrade that has actually put the United States Postal Service into total chaos. So anyway, she left her house because she lives in a very rural area of Texas and went down to the small little podunk post office near her and had a conversation with them there. And they confirmed the same thing. So here's 3 United States postal workers, who are confirming that the United States Postal Service is in complete disarray. Isn't this ironic that this huge system update happened before a presidential election? And isn't it ironic that there's so many mail-in ballots that are going to be going through the United States Postal Service? I just find it very interesting, as did my friend who called to alert me of this, that this is the time and place that this is going to be happening. It just leaves us with little hope that we can have any sense of security when you're putting something in the mail. And this is why I encourage all of you, do not do mail-in ballots. If you have to, then yes. You know, if you're active service or if you're handicapped, those sort of things, you can't get down to a polling station. I get that. But you know what? With this Chase the Ballot initiative that the Republicans are putting on, if you have a mail-in ballot, I wouldn't put it in the mail, folks. I would call your Republican Party or call Turning Point, and they will get a hold of somebody in your community to come and pick up your ballot for you and deliver it. A trustworthy Republican. They're doing tons of training at Turning Point. They're getting all these people ramped up. And this is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow on the podcast with my granddaughter. She's going to be talking about Chase the Ballot and how this is all going to work. And if you're retired or if you've got time in your life to volunteer and help with this sort of thing, call Turning Point and get involved with Chase the Ballot. Get a hold of your legislative district chair, wherever you may live, and see if they've gotten the information from Turning Point and if they can get you lists of how you can help out in your community. Because obviously we can't trust the United States Postal Service, folks. So again, anybody who's getting a mail-in ballot, I would definitely get a hold of your legislative district Republican chairman and find out who can come and pick up your ballot for you and deliver it. Do not trust the United States Postal Service. And that is my bit of advice for today. So I hope you all have a wonderful day. Looking forward to tomorrow's podcast with my granddaughter and getting more information about Chase the Ballot and